In this video, I'm going to show you how the Material UI grid system works. Implementing your custom responsive layout takes a lot of time, but with Material UI grid system, it makes our life easier to implement this to increase productivity. And the key point you need to take note here is that the grid system helps us to lay out content responsively to any screen size. Alright, so let's see how it works. Assuming this is our browser and we want to lay out content using Material UI, you need the container. So what does this works? The container helps us to arrange the items in it the way we want. And inside the container, we have what is called the grid items, and we'll talk about it later on. So the grid container has two directions. One by row, and that is default, and it uses what? The flex box. And the other direction is called the column, right? So the grid items are placed inside the container and it will obey the direction of the container. So assuming that the container direction is from left to right, the items inside the container will be arranged from left to right. And if from top to bottom, it will obey that one as well. And the take note here is that it is based on 12 column layout. So it means that the items that have been placed inside the container, the layout must be added up to 12. And the items are responsive because it uses what percentages. So assuming that the grid items values are placed in the container must be added up to 12, right? Like I said. So let's take it that the first one takes 4, the other one takes 4, and 4. In total, it's added up to 12, right? And the value that we pass in is called the breakpoint, and I'll talk about it as we proceed on. So if the total values are more than 12, it will move to the next row. So if I can see here that if you add up the total value here, it's more than 12. So it will move to the next row, right? And let's look at the props that it takes. So we've talked about the breakpoint. So the breakpoints in Material UI are as follows, right? So the items can be shifted to the next row based on the breakpoint. So these are the breakpoints we have in Material UI. XX simply means extra small, that is 0 pixels. SM small, MD medium, LG large, and XL mean extra large. So let's say on a medium screen, it should take 6. Then the other one will be 3, right? And we can also pass in a prop called spacing. And it helps to have some space between the items. And the row spacing simply means that if you want to have some spacing between the rows, you can pass in that. And the column spacing, as the name implies, as have some space between the columns. Alright, so with this being said, let's go back to code and show you how it's being implemented. Alright, so let's practice what we have explained. So I'm going to use this project that I'm working on, that is the tutorial series on Material UI. So if you're new, and this is what you are going to use for demonstration purposes. Alright, so inside the project, this is where we left by creating the header here. So we are going to play around with the grid system with code, and then we come back to the project and implement that. So inside the SRC, I have created one folder called Playground if you haven't done that. So this is the time you're going to play around with the grade system, because it's really important to play around with it before. So let's create one file here, and I'll call this one grade MUI. I don't want to have the name being conflict with the default name. That is why I have added the grade MUI, and the name is optional. So let me just scaffold the component here, and I need the grade for material UI. Okay, so as that. So let's quickly go to documentation and show. Let me rearrange it well as that. Cool. So let's head over to documentation and let's search for grade. All right, so let's click on that. Not this grade, this grade. Okay, so the material grade system, as I explained it, I don't want to waste my time here, and this is Flexbox. Okay, so the first thing is that, as I explained in the video, that provide a container tells you the direction you should obey, right? So let's quickly go ahead and do that. So I have my grade here, and then the logic is that I want to have 3 layouts as we explained in the video. So I have grade here, and the first thing pass in my container, right? And inside the grade, I have my grade items here. Grade items here inside. So if provide an item here, this means that at which breakpoint this grade should take the available space. All right. So for the meantime, let's go to Google and then let's search for some dummy text. So I will search for dummy text here. Dummy text. I want to have some enhanced text in the. So I can copy this one. All right, cool. Copy that. And then for this grade item one here, I will paste the text inside. So logic, I want to have 3 items. So I'll copy this one time, 2 and 3. Okay. So like I said, this one, the entire item here must be added up to 12. And it uses the breakpoint. So here you will say that on medium screen, I want this one to take 4 available spaces. So I will provide 4 on each of the grade items as that. So when I save this one, but for the meantime, let's provide some color to it so that to be differentiate of what you are referring to. So I'm going to use the SX prop as I've explained in the previous video. So let's give this background color as red, and let's copy this class name here, and let's add this one to that and change this one to green, and the last one also to, let's say, yellow. So the last is, let's render this component. So for the meantime, let's uncomment this one, and then let's render our component. Sorry, called grade MUI. Let's try the auto import. Yes, this works fine. So let's just render that and let's see it in the browser. Okay, there we go. So as you can see that it has taken the available space 444 add up to 12. But as soon as I change the value of this one to, let's say, 10, right, the next one will push next line. So let's check it out. As you can see, the red has taken available 10%, okay, available space, 100% of that. So as you can see, you have the red being 10 and other ones being 44, right? So if I change this one also to 12, this one will be on the next line. Let's check it out, and there we go. So let's bring them back to the normal sizes 44. And now if you want to change direction from row to column, by default the container is by flex and direction is row. So if you want to change, all what we need is provide flex direction to the parent container and change this one to column. You can see that they'll be on top of each other. Let's check it out. There you go. So on column, you want to take available spaces for each. So you can see that here going to be 12, and then 12, and then 12 as that. Cool. And for this one, you can also provide the spacing like I explained. So for the meantime, let's change it back to row for me to show you. back to row, and the 4 available spaces as we have. So if you provide spacing as 2, you see that we have spacing around the items. Okay, I think it's too small. We provide, let's say 9 here or 10. As you can see here, the children, we have available space between them. As you can see, the spacing. Our final project, I use grid system to lay out this as that. So in the next video, we are going to take what you have learned into practice by implementing this.